I was thinking about like kind of all the intellectualizing stuff, and these argument shows that now they've gotten to this point where there's actually sort of almost a normal level where people who are relatively normal and are like sort of like, okay, I like the political takes of this guy with this nice beard. He sells coffee. He's chunky. He's very comfortable. He's kind of funny. His takes are funny. I don't agree with everything, but etc. Or like, this young man apparently was a skater. He wears a beanie. He's got this show. He's very amenable and very nice, and so it's pulled people into wanting to hear more and more about some kind of political issue or issue of the day. And really, overall, that's good, because they're no longer interested in, say, something like, foosball as much, but I mean, that did its own self in. So, something that I was thinking about is that, that was really good that Emma Vigeland did a debate like that, because there's a number of things that follow naturally from what she was saying. And one of these is that at some point was cited the victim survey. Now, this is something that's come up, and there's only a handful of people bring this up. The person survived a crime and described it. Crime clusters, lethal crime and really violent crime clusters in 150 out of 3,000 counties in the United States. So these are people preying on people that they kind of know, understand, look like, share a geographical area with. The vast majority of undeveloped America, the 2% that's developed, the rest of it in the 48 contiguous states is not developed. That's why you fly over it. And it's not even farmland. It's just empty. Nobody has a reason to live there land. There's no other humans there, because humans are important. You need them. And so, and cities, So, she made this argument that comes down to this, and this has happened only enough times that I've gotten to see this a good number of times, that because this has to mean that the victims of crime, where what we're talking about are these cluster areas of rather violent crime, these are more than likely to be Black Americans, when obviously they are telling the police who did it, they said it was a Black person. So this starts to become them then walking you through. So what you do is you corner them on this. I mean, so this is an issue of that area and the people who live there, and doing something about the nature of a lot of violent crime like that is recidivist. This isn't like that a lot of young men are getting this idea that if they just pop off an extendo into a crowd or something. No, this slowly builds, and we know this. This is a known. This is actually studied about, like, kind of the minor levels of crime and minor criminals and stuff like that, who then become major criminals. We understand them, like, just like we understand how jihadis and terrorists tend to actually be people of shockingly high likelihood of the educated class, because that's the only way they can understand ideas that they would be willing to do such things for. So when you're talking about American crime, and so you then have this description. Okay, no, this Black person did this to me. I'm Black too. And so what happens is the white liberals, and all liberals, have to act like, well, with Black liberals, it typically becomes there needs to be more midnight basketball. By the end of it all, it is, if there was free health care, reparations and midnight basketball for all, and then some kind of usually free food program or something like that. And more education. because there's this widespread belief that white Americans didn't spend billions of dollars on inner city schools over the last about 30 years. And really, it's like at some point there was an article about it that I was reading by one of the more, I think it might have been the stuff black people don't like or something like that, or VDare. And they had really done some number crunching. They said even with just these numbers, so we're not really even going even deeper than these sets of programs. You're already at, I think, two something billion over really about a 30-year period. And these weren't ancient, antiquated buildings in a lot of cases. This also is something that these are in some of the wealthiest. They were in cities that were the wealthiest cities in the world, where black Americans tended to cluster. So so really they could not afford to rebuild these places. The cities themselves, they absolutely required the federal government pouring money into them. So beyond all that, it should really concern somebody if what you are looking for is kind of protection by this alliance party, this ethnic, gender sexual alliance party that will not admit that black Americans are telling people a black person did this to me. They're not admitting. They start going through how it's really the deep history of that it's tricknology, brother. They're making you see black people, things like that, and it's just, a long time ago when I started to spot this, I kind of thought it a curious way of approaching crime and thinking about crime. But then as time's gone on, I started to find, no, these are people that they solidly just simply believe they are correct. It is really nothing more than this. It's really not. It's not something more than that. They believe themselves to be correct. It's not that they could demonstrably prove that they are. And then when you would say, well, no, but the victim surveys, when they break down like what people described and the information garnered and they systematize the information, this is what the victim said. This isn't, this is separate of anything like witness reports and things like that from what I gather. But I could be also wrong about that. So the thing that this comes down to is, if you need more education, you need like somebody to be the educator. So now you need their sort of superpowers to help sort out the problem with the black men who murder. Not that you take those men and separate them from society. Now, one of the things about the stop and frisk and all that, it absolutely did work. There's no way around this. It did work. It was a very extreme thing to do, but people are not dealing with like how bad it was, and that it worked. It got they found a good number of guns, but also it made people not carry them, and this was admitted. This was admitted by people. They said, yeah, we started stashing them places and things like that. There's even rap songs that talk about stashing your weapons places because the police will try to shake you down for them. And stashing things. What was it? There's a video by, what's it called? Naughty by Nature, where they show them stashing things around some place that they live. So this was a program that was working. It was actually causing people to then hide all their contraband and weapons in varieties of places. And now that's its own issue, but it altered the behavior. That was the whole point. He was correct about that. And so then I had to really run over, so what is Emma's real good response here? And she really wanted to do this thing of it's racist. It's this magical word that people like her can say. And that it wasn't about black people being killed by black people. And a lot of black liberals really need to start dealing with that. They don't, it's about their ideology. It's about their magical world where Emma will rule with her kook ideas, and people like Anna Kasparian will be seen as greats of intellect and journalism. But you'll die, and they're going to justify how all these people who have arrived recently should be able to vote, and that will drown out your vote. I mean, just look at what's happening with the Muslims and the LGBTQ plus stuff. You know, there are people, they organize, they have their interests, and they're going to win. They work toward their interests, so they will win. And you, Black Americans, are not working toward their interests, so Black Americans will get whatever happens. Will get whatever the outcome is. And also, you're starting to, people don't get, with such new arrivals, at some point they're going to also get tired of being preyed upon by, very likely, this very, very, very small sliver of Black Americans who are sociopathic and psychopathic. And they too, if they're given the right to vote, will lock you N-words up. So there's really no way around this, Black liberals. You're stuck. You're stuck. And now you have to hope that the revolution really delivers you something that, I mean, you repeatedly have been shown they won't even acknowledge. They won't even really acknowledge what your interests are. They just won't. It has to be some guy who comes in looking like a kook, yelling something about reparations, or some guy in a really, really nice suit, then talking in some preacher tones about reparations, and, you know, rather than how are you going to solve the total collapse of these cities that Black Americans are clustered in, that have a bunch of psycho and sociopaths in them that will keep staying there, because if they go into the exurbs, it's over. If they go into the exurbs, their career is over. But if they, and people know this even about Chicago, Illinois, and like, I guess some place in Indiana, that you go there and that's it. It ain't Roscoe B. Coltrane. It's the it's the guy from Greensville. It's the sheriff of Greensville or whatever, and he's gonna lock your ass up, and he's gonna ditch you. He's gonna put you in the ditch, and he's gonna lock you up. But so yeah, this is just some I'm thinking about later.